The Flying Lion says,
Boys, hell is real.
2023 Supporter Shield champs.
Just give me a reason to drink some Guinness in the morning.
Yeah, just a fan of the sport, you know.
I appreciate the opportunity.
It's definitely tougher to be an academy player than it is a pro.
Soccer's my favorite sport now.
The jersey swap was
my car of the week, trivia question of the week. Welcome back, everyone, to the Flyin Lion podcast. Back tonight on a very interesting Monday night. Unfortunately, FC Cincinnati lost the past two games we had this week. Sam, we haven't said that in a long time, so not going to be too mad about that. Just kind of a brutal week. We scratch it, we move on. But before we do and get into this episode, news came out today about our loanee, Marco Angulo. Prayers out to him. He was in an automobile accident earlier today. He remains in critical condition. It sounds like he went through surgery. He had a brain bleed, so hopefully he's going to be okay from this. But our prayers go out to Marco and his family and everyone involved. Sounds just like a terrible event that went on today.
Yeah, absolutely. I know, FC Cincinnati put out a statement, had some people, including the Columbus Crew, reach out in their support. Obviously, it's something that, should be taken very seriously. And it sounds like the surgery was successful as well. So he does remain in critical condition. However, the story's not done, right? So continue your prayers as we continue to go throughout the rest of the week, and hopefully he's remains well after his hospital visit there.
Yeah, I mean, he's still, even though he's on loan in Ecuador, like he's still part of this team, and technically this roster. So any of our own or even former players, like Marco helped us to win a supporter shield last year. So we're thinking about him and, like we said, everyone involved in this situation, and hopefully we'll get some updates soon that he's turned in the corner. We shall see. But this past week, we'll do a little bit of a brief recap of the Orlando match that we had, at least on Saturday. We'll do some jersey swaps, cards of the week. Second part of the episode, we're going to talk a lot about the FC Cincinnati 2 team, just this upbringing that they've had this year. Clinching the top spot in the Eastern Conference, which is just awesome to see. We'll talk about the continued FCC development this year. A little bit of international news as we go into this international break. It's kind of strange that we have that at this point in the season, but it is what it is. And then talk a little bit about the MLS end-of-year awards, as some of our players are currently kind of in the mix for a lot of these awards, Sam. So as we get into it, Saturday's match, like I said, real quickly, a brief recap, in this one, a 1-3 home loss. I was pumped, honestly, to see this team back at home, coming after this New York game. Like, I wanted to just give our full effort in support of this team, and it just did not turn out well.
No, it did not. Last home game of the season, fan
For regular
appreciation
season.
day. Regular season. Yeah, regular season. So last home game of the regular season, fan appreciation day, all this. Great vibes going to the stadium. Against Orlando was going to be a great game. Great, like I said, pregame energy. And to go into the game, it just, once again, starting off, it was tough because everybody kind of looked just like they didn't want to be there, almost. I think the vibe around the team isn't good. It's not good. It just looks like everybody is just frustrated, and they don't look like the same team that we saw earlier this season. Like, just smiling, happy to be there, play, and like enjoy the game. It literally looks like this season has taken a huge toll on them for sure.
The momentum, like if the season was a game, like the momentum in this is just unbelievable, and how it's just gone the opposite direction. I mean, we're like 2-7-2 or something, in the last 11 games. So yeah, I mean, to your point, like the mojo's off, and I think it's got to come from the top, whether that's the coaching staff, whether that's from the captain, like something's got to change. But as you mentioned, like going into the game though, I think the one point that I took away from the lineup, Sam, was seeing Kubo and seeing Orishano on the bench. I really had posed the question online was, hey, we have a 2-week break after this game. Is this the right call, to have these guys on the bench? What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I thought that was a little interesting. They both take breaks there. I mean, what we were looking for a result from the Crew, right? And if they lose, do we go up in points or is it tie them? What was the
Yeah, we
situation? I
we
can't
would
remember
have
what the
brought it up.
situation
The
was.
the bigger situation in this moment was to knock down the Champions Cup spot. So,
Yeah,
I mean, that would take us a win would have, honestly clinched that. I don't know about the Crew spot there. The numbers on that, I think it was pretty close to them, but more importantly is just at this point keeping home field advantage for the playoffs,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then clinching that Champions Cup spot. But it was a lackluster beginning. Like we've seen multiple times in the last 14 games, 11 out of the 14 most recent games, we've given up the first goal. So, I mean, if you're going to come out after losing the game on Wednesday and give up a goal right away to kind of kill things, like we started out decent, 10 minutes in, we were doing well, but you give up a well taken goal and it just completely kills your vibe. Shout out to that guy because that finish was just very good. But it went against the run of play. And from there, like we kind of were scrambling again, to get back into the game.
Yeah, I know in the beginning of the game there, after he scores the goal, we've got a chance to where Buka is literally in the 18-yard box and he is set up to take up the perfect goal, like great pass by Assad. And I didn't realize you could possibly do this. He squared the ball up too much. He opened his hips too much and puts it wide right. And he probably had a good 5 yards around him to be able to work with, settle, and shoot. And I mean, stuff like that, right? From this end of the season here, the past 10 games, how many chances inside the opponent's 18-yard box are we not converting? That was a big thing for me that I saw, and I was like, okay, we're off.
Yeah, no, good point. And really, if you look at it, they score in the 10th minute. We have a ton of like the possession early on. They score in that moment. And then, like you said, with Buka's miss especially, it's half chances. I've always preached in the MLS is taking your opportunities and scoring on them. And last year, I felt like we did a decent job at in those chances. Like we took it and then we kept the lead and it was a 1-0 game or whatever it was. But yeah, I mean, we didn't not have opportunities. Like we had these opportunities and we didn't put them away. But Lucho, actually does come back and gets us back in the game, Sam. I mean, I love the shot from him from outside. Everybody's expecting a, backdoor kind of cross, to our big forwards that we had in this game. He keeps or catches the keeper off his line, leaning off to the opposite. I think it was the far post, right? And then he goes front post with the shot. Unbelievable. I mean, take on that. And like you had said, like more of the typical Lucho type of magic that we're used to seeing.
Yeah, I mean, they gave Lucho way too much space. And when Lucho knows he has too much space, he literally rolls the ball, right? With his right foot, he just rolls
That's
it
true.
and casually puts it into the back of the net. He was kind of like, "Oh, all right, thank you." Like I didn't know I'm just gonna have this much space. But yeah, once again, kind of seeing the Lucho of old, even though it was earlier this season that we were seeing stuff like this. I guess pre-foot Lucho, right? Or pre-injury Lucho, right? But yeah, once again, he creates magic out of nothing going on. Like you said, kind of against the run of play there, and puts us back in the game before half.
Yeah, and honestly, we needed that right at the 45-minute mark. Going
Yeah,
into half and being tied is just completely different of a message that your manager has, to say something or to really get on the guys. And I think maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. At that point, you're tied 1-1, and then you don't really have as much to say if you're the coach to kind of get fire under your guys. And unfortunately, they come out and we just have mental mistakes. So, maybe that was kind of a bad timing of things in some ways. But yeah, I really think like, especially in the second half, Sam, like it's a lack of mental, I don't even know what it is, like just concentration, is that what you would call it? I mean, with the Roman play, with the Orishano play, like these moments don't happen to this team under Pat Noonan usually. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just not staying focused or just the run of form and how it's gone. But something's got to change. Like, how often do you see this from MLS teams like this late on in the season? Good teams, good MLS teams, like those simple mistakes, like they don't happen that much.
No, yeah, I didn't really appreciate. Obviously, like we've seen Celentano before make, a couple mistakes like that where unfortunately it'll go through his hands. But the third goal for me is the big thing. Orishano, he tries to play the ball back, and instead of recognizing his mistake and trying to get back and help Celentano, he sits there and watches Celentano go 2v1 and try and, save this goal all by himself, doesn't even hustle back and then just hangs his head, right? So immediately you're thinking, what, like, there is no energy, there's no passion for the game here. We're just, hey, let's get to the end of the season. And, I don't know. The last time I checked, that's not really the attitude that we want to have going into the playoffs. And I don't know if for him, right, maybe this, because playoffs are an Americanized thing, right? So maybe for those players that we brought in, right, that are new, they're starting to get accustomed to the wear and tear of this season, right? And now they're being told, and you have playoffs on top of that,
Which
right?
actually
So,
means more.
which actually means more. So, like, do you think that's weighing on them as far as like, geez, like, I'm already exhausted as it is, and we're not even to the end of the season yet, and we've got playoffs. Like, do you think that
Yeah.
might be like in the back of their mind a little bit, maybe, and then it's getting crowded?
I mean, that would be an easy like cop out like thing to
No,
say,
yeah,
but
that's
no,
what I'm
but
saying. If you were to give them any
you
excuse,
make a
right,
great
of
point
what's
though
going on.
with all the guys that are like coming into the team, like you mentioned, like what, 5, 6 new guys.
Yeah,
Giacchini, Kelsey had never played in the MLS before. Well, okay, Giacchini did.
yeah,
Kelsey had never played in the MLS.
Luca,
Buka had never played
yeah,
in the MLS. Um, you know,
Cheeto.
yeah, Cheeto in the back line. I mean, multiple players.
Mhm.
So in that moment, like you have to lean on your veterans, like your solid MLS guys that can say, this is the way that you approach the season. This is the way we win. This is how we stay consistent. I saw a lot of talk online and like, okay, Orishano is a great player. Like he had a bad moment, but the goal that breaks the team was Roman, in that play where,
Oh
okay,
yeah,
it's a simple save. The game's 1-1. You could go and find a winner in the late game. Like that's deflating. And there was no message after that moment to boost the team, to get them back up. And what I was going to mention is all the chatter online that, oh, it's not, Matt Miazga. Like, that's the crutch we're going to lean on and stuff. It's like, it's clearly Matt, though. Like, it is clearly a player in the back that would get on Roman, no matter who he is, or Orshano, no matter how good of a player he is, and say, you messed up. Or if it is on Matt, like he did earlier in the year where he had the own goal, accountability. Like, there's no accountability from any of them. And like you said, hanging your head, walking back, like where does the energy come from? That's truly, in my opinion, like it comes from Matt. It really does on the field. Like Pat can try all he can from the sideline, but like the players have to go out and do it, and they have to keep each other accountable for mistakes like that. So to me, that was the more deflating thing is like nobody got on each other to say like it's got to be better.
well, and
And
it's to your point. How can you have accountability without cohesion, right?
yeah,
These guys don't really like. Once again, what was it? 41, right?
41 different lineup.
Yeah, 41 different lineups. So there's no cohesion. So how are you going to be able to hold people accountable when you don't know how the guy to your right or to the left plays or his attitude when he does something wrong or right? Like,
It's
obviously,
honestly incredible, like our record and what we've had with that many different lineups.
I it is like kind of mesmerizing to think about, but at the same time, you're going, this is the Supporter Shield champions,
Yeah.
right? We have, like you said, we brought in 6, 7 new guys. The rest of the guys have been here, right? So there's a reason that we have an MVP that's on the field that, I mean, he has never been one to keep people accountable through words. It's always been through his actions that he keeps somebody accountable. So it's frustrating to see
And
him,
his play.
and that's what I'm saying. Through his play, like he keeps people accountable and going, see, like I did that, like you, like let's go, like kind of bringing the energy up, and that's what he did before half. And unfortunately, in the second half, it was just there was no cohesion up top. Specifically, the attack was just clustered, right? It was very tight. Lucho was having to try and make something out of nothing, which he always tries to do, but it was it was just tough to watch.
Yeah, and like you make great points, and I think that's a good point about the cohesion part too. Is last year like the lineup was the same every game. Everyone knew exactly who they were playing next to, and like he talked about it so much a couple weeks ago, and then went completely against it. And there's been no suspensions or injuries, so like, are we gonna be consistent or are we not? And that's not like a slight at him, but like if you're gonna say something like that, and then the results are not good to back it up, like then what are we doing? And is it trying to play chess and like, hey, matchups or, fitness levels, multiple games per week? Like we did it last year, didn't we? So maybe he learned from last year and said, like, I can't wear these guys out, like you had mentioned, during the regular season. And we do have the playoffs to stay consistent then. Like that's the time to keep that same lineup and to get that most out of your line. I don't know, but building up to it, it doesn't build much confidence. And, coming out of this game, Sam, like my instant thing is like, this ain't it. This is not what we saw last year. This is not like I want a hard battling team that fights and not one that, okay, we had a mental lapse in our goalkeeper and we're going to roll over and die. Like that's
Yeah,
just
and I'd like people to
not
keep
acceptable.
positivity though, right? Like
Yeah, that's
this
what I
team,
mean. Just
yeah,
just
exactly.
be positive out of it.
Be positive about it. Like there are some things where you can look at this team, like you said, 41 matches, and we're sitting at third in the Eastern Conference, right? So there's still some positivities in there. We still have the quality in each of the positions on the field to be able to go and win this cup. It just takes everybody to be on the same page. And, maybe that hits in the playoffs. Maybe people go, okay, like those first time people, right? This is their first time in the playoffs. Maybe they get a taste of that and go, "Holy crap! Like I love the MLS playoffs. Like the energy's high. Like I need to rise to the occasion." So
Maybe that's
obviously,
the
like
best thing for the team is just to
yeah,
have some sort of motivation that says it's a clean slate. I don't care how you ended the regular
yeah.
season, like it's a new start,
Hey,
and
hey, wait! It's a new canvas.
maybe that's why
Hey,
we came up with these
hey.
the new jerseys this year. Yeah, coming out of this game, Sam, couple of stats we had Saturday. Mark Lucho's 250th career MLS regular season appearance. Pretty big honor for him. I mean, that's a lot of appearances. We did have teenage Hidebe. He got his first assist for FC Cincinnati in his debut at home. Thought that he played pretty decent, but we need more than a half from him. And then since July 13th, FCC has had a 4-game losing streak and a 3-game losing streak in 11 games. So again, like, where does the accountability come? And the statement by somebody's got to step up and say, this is not acceptable.
Yeah, yeah. That last stat is kind of just like daggers
This
right
doesn't
there.
happen to us
No,
routinely in the last
no.
3 years,
You look. You're
especially.
you're looking at the end of the season, right? You look at all the fixtures. Doesn't matter what website you look at, FotMob or Football Reference or whatever, and it's like when you see L's in a row, got like it takes you back to 2021 and before, and you're like, I don't want to see that anymore. Like if it's scattered, that's fine, but let's get back on track here, and I'd like to see more dubs than else.
True, true. Did you have any bright moments from this, I guess, week in general? Any jersey swaps you want to just real quickly shout out?
Yeah, yeah. So jersey swap, obviously, Lucho is going to be the jersey swap. Fourth straight game with a goal contribution. So he is there. He's not the same Lucho that we've seen, but he's still contributing and he's still, bringing us exactly what we need. Just need more volume of it, right, from the whole team. Like I said, creates the magic out of nothing. He actually, led the team with 9 shot creating chances. So he's creating something out of nothing, which is great. Had some insane take-ons, which unfortunately didn't end in a goal, but once again, it just gets your heart rate going. And he brought a spark to the squad there throughout the game. Just couldn't get it done overall.
Yeah, good shout. Needed his goal to come back. Always need that from your captain to keep the energy and keep going like for the full game. Like didn't quite have it, in this game. I'm gonna push back a little bit on the fact that I'm still over his free kicks and his corners. So we can move past that and go to somebody different. It's time. I think everyone understands that. But yeah, ultimately, I have a lot to say about him in the second part when we talk about some MLS awards and kind of the long-term picture of the season, for Lucho. But my jersey swap, Sam, it wasn't anybody deserving from the first team, in my opinion. It was the FC Cincinnati 2 team this week that clinched, again, the top seed for the Eastern Conference, NextPro. Unbelievable season they've had. They deserve the jersey swap. They deserve the locker room this week, and they got it. They got to celebrate in an MLS locker room for clinching that. Props to them.
Yeah. I know we'll talk about it here on the second part of the pod a little bit more, but loved them celebrating with the water. I thought that was hilarious.
True. And all of the things that were trying to clean up the locker room, too, so they didn't damage it too much. Some guys would not have been happy if
No,
their
yeah,
lockers
first teamers
were
would not have been happy.
not have been happy. Maybe Dotto, because he's got his own
Yeah,
first team
Dotto's
locker.
like, that's my locker. It's fine.
We could go and mess with that one, but
I just
nobody
got a hat
else's.
trick. That's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Any cards that you saw this week?
I mean, slow week right here in the upcoming week, but my card of the week is to be just the international break in general. I mean, it's right before our playoffs once again. Isn't there? Do we get an international break this playoffs as well?
We do, just like
In that
last
one,
year.
yeah, that's great. So get another international break during the playoffs as well. It hinders the momentum of things. And then also another weird one. You have MLS teams playing during the international break because they're trying to catch up with the matches. So we
True.
have LAFC and the Crew trying to catch up. So they're playing, I think, this weekend, and then everybody else plays next weekend. So it's all weird and all messed up, and it's all on the European calendar. It's unfortunate to be over here on the other side of the pond.
You ever seen the show Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Yes, beautiful show.
Don't
Beautiful
they
show.
don't they say something at the beginning like where like the rules don't matter and everything's just made up?
Yes. Yeah,
Something
yeah.
along those
Yeah.
lines. Isn't that the same for the MLS?
Yeah, the rules don't matter and everything is made up. Welcome to the MLS.
We can just make the rules out of thin air, including
Yeah.
my card of the week, the new MVP rule consideration that you now have to have 1,000 minutes to be considered a MVP candidate. Okay, prior to 2024, no minimum minute criteria. No player had ever played under 2,000 minutes that won the MLS MVP. 2024, in October, we decided, oh, let's just actually make the criterias so some of these people fit the mold. Right now, Messi sits at like 1,400 minutes, roughly. Could get to 1,500, right? Make it 1,500. Make it 1,500, and then he's got to play a Mickey Mouse game or some makeup game from earlier in the season that they didn't announce, and then he'd meet the criteria. Yeah, 1,000 minutes, and the dude's at 1,400, and everyone's like, oh, he's MVP. That's it right there. I mean, like, in that amount of minutes, he's had 32 goal contributions. That's really, really good. But the most valuable player for an entire season, and most valuable for their team.
Yeah.
And players that have, won the game on their goal contributions, like Mickey Mouse rules. Like it's just like all created.
On that
Don't love
though,
it.
wasn't there a whole thing for the Club World Cup, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
great shout again.
So honorable shout out there.
Yes.
Inter Miami getting into the Club World Cup because at the beginning, what was it, at the beginning of the season, middle of the season, somewhere in the season, the MLS was like, okay, someone is going to be in the Club World Cup, and we're just not going to tell you the criteria for it. We're not going to announce who the possibilities could be, like what teams have to do. But then we're
Supporter
gonna
Shield
wait.
winner
Yeah,
gets to
we're gonna
go
wait
on.
for Inter Miami to win something this year. It doesn't matter if it's U.S. Open Cup. It doesn't matter if it's Leagues Cup or MLS Cup or Supporter Shield. They have to win something, and then we're gonna go. Oh, that's crazy! Inter Miami is going to the Club World Cup. No way!
Imagine if they won the U.S. Open Cup and then they said the U.S. Open Cup winner gets to play in the Club World Cup.
That
I
would.
mean,
Oh my gosh!
how close was Indy 11 to
I
that?
was gonna say India 11 goes to the Club World Cup.
I mean, this is just all made up rules. Like, okay, we won Supporter Shield last year. Do we get any consideration for anything? No?
Nope.
Or how about Sasha Question, Sam? Another honorable shout out for card of the week.
We got actually we had some decent cards actually. Here we go.
Sasha Question comes out, former MLS player, and says, "Oh, actually, you know, winning the Supporter Shield is the bigger thing than the cup. So let's just start this whole debate again, that we've been trying to push since last year." And Sam, I loved your comment to the MLS post saying, "Hey Sasha, we love it, but where was this last year when FCC won?"
Yeah, I know there were some people that were like, he was saying it last year. It was like, well, obviously he wasn't saying it loud
Well,
enough.
and it's not even a slight to him. I think it's more of your point was a slight to the people that are saying like
Oh
the
yeah,
cup
yeah,
is
yeah.
the thing. Like we're furthering our point of like it's over the course of the season. And like to all the people about, again, the unbalanced schedules and this and that, it's like the playoffs. Look at the
I had seen
playoffs.
somebody else had said something like, Sasha, have you ever won the MLS Cup or something like that?
Ooh,
I was like, oh, I was like, actually,
yikes.
actually, they might have him right there, so we might not be talking about that.
There's a lot of card considerations this week.
I mean, they're like underneath the carpet, you just gotta lift up the card. You're like, oh my God, there's a lot of cards underneath there. It's crazy.
Kind of regress it in the back of your head, and you're like, oh, wait, actually,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. During the week, you just you're numb to all these losses,
true.
right? So that's what
Well, and the made
happens.
up rules
Yes,
and
made up rules.
trying to
Yeah.
keep up with like what's the consideration and how many games do they have to play?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Messi, Messi, Messi. Yeah.
It's ridiculous, man. You have a good trivia question for us though this week. Let's hear it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna try to trick you here. So we've got trivia of the week. Obviously, we're gonna be talking big portions of the episode about FCC2. So my trivia of the question is how many hat tricks has FC Cincinnati 2 had this season? And then bonus points for if you can name the player or players.
I'm gonna go with 3 hat tricks for the FC Cincinnati 2 team. Stefan Chirilla, and then I think Dowdo's done it twice. So I'm gonna say those 2 players.
All right, Ryan's got his guess in. We'll see what it is on the other side.
Hey, FC Cincinnati fans, we are pumped to share our new sponsor, Peak Cocktails.
I'm sipping on the passion fruit margarita, which is so spicy and it makes me feel like I'm on the beach.
Ooh, that sounds great. I'm drinking the Blood Orange Spritz, which has a great subtle ginger flavor coming from its scientifically formulated recipe to promote exercise recovery, enhance relaxation, and support a better night's sleep.
Ryan, that's exactly why I love them. Their cocktails are designed to fit seamlessly into your health conscious lifestyle, giving you the enjoyment of a delicious adult drink without the downsides of alcohol.
Guys, next time you are looking for that post-workout drink or an afternoon pick-me-up, grab a Peak Cocktail. Visit them at www.peakcocktails.com and use the code FLYINLION at checkout to get 20% off your first order. Zach, enjoy your drink. Welcome back, everyone. Tonight, on the second part of this episode, we are going to talk a little bit about the FC Cincinnati 2 team. We want to give them some love because the first team just stunk this week. And the 2s deserve some love, Sam. They had a nice win against Orlando at home, 3-1 scoreline, so flipped from the first team. And it was at TQL Stadium. Pretty cool moment.
Yeah, the young Garys showing up, showing out. Showed up in front of 5,000 people, which was awesome to see. They had a decent crowd for, their clinching of the Eastern Conference there, top seed in the Eastern Conference. So exciting to see for our youngins. Development's going good, and then kind of how I mentioned in the first part of the podcast. Dotto had a hat trick, right? So made it look too easy. Had a hat trick in 63 minutes. Like, man was efficient. I believe he scored in the first 2 minutes, right?
He did. He did, absolutely. And honestly, like for him, 6 goals and 3 appearances for FCC2, like, all right, you're doing well. And like
Yeah,
he's earned his
yeah,
minutes. I really honestly felt like he should have had a shout for more minutes in the last part of the season, honestly. Like I know we brought in Nico and he's on loan and Como probably wants us to play him and this and that, but like Think back, Sam. You remember May, you remember June. We had to use Dotto a lot more. And guess what? We won. Like,
Yeah.
okay, the defense is the big issue, but like Dotto created chances, and I think he did fairly well with Lucho in that position, with Kubo, and with whatever striker we had next to him, because it wasn't always the same one. But yeah, I really feel like there's something to be said. Like, he didn't play much the second half of the season for the first team. There's something to be said about that. But yeah, great shout. I mean, awesome that we had about what 5,000 people that showed up for this game, at TQL. I've always said it. They need to be able to play more matches in TQL when we have the turf established because we don't want to wear that turf out anymore. But yeah, awesome they got to celebrate, in the first team locker room, just to celebrate an awesome season that they've had, turning it around compared to the last 2 or 3 seasons. I saw online, I thought it was hilarious. Can the FCC2 team please play in the MLS Cup playoffs?
Interesting shout there for some people on Twitter. As I mean, they're in great form, right? So it's interesting. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, wouldn't end well, obviously. But yeah, I think like you said, going into the playoffs, Sam, you had kind of an interesting take on how this goes. You were looking into the rules more. It's different than the MLS though.
Yeah. So they established this playoff system last year in 2023, and they call it pick your own opponent. So they go through a selection process where the number one through number three seeds will choose their opponent from the 5 through 8 seeds, with the number four club playing whoever is remaining. So you pretty much, as the top seed, get to pick who you play. So if throughout the year you were dominant against one team, then you're more apt to pick that team rather than somebody you may have struggled it against, or lost by a lot of goals. So I think it's an interesting way to look at it. That is actually going to be happening today as you're listening to it. Tomorrow as we're recording it, but people get to watch in real time as clubs just choose who they'll face in the next round, which is actually kind of interesting.
Choose your own adventure. I like it.
Yeah.
2 follow-up questions for you, Sam. Number one, will these playoff games you think be held at NKU or at TQL?
I would assume that they'd be held at NKU, possibly. I know I'm sure there'd be shouts for TQL, but like you said, it just depends on if they want to wear on the turf anymore. And then I know we have a little bit of a break here as far as when
Sure.
FC Cincinnati will play there next. So it just depends on their playoff schedule. But I would imagine that it still remains at an NKU. Now, do they add possibly more seating at NKU, or do they add, like, is that something that
Sure.
they'll look to do? I doubt it, because they're stationary seats that are on concrete if you haven't been over there. But um, yeah, I mean, I would probably just say it probably at NKU.
Second follow-up question.
Yeah.
What do you think about the MLS adapting this rule for their playoff system? We see it a lot in Major League Baseball. The MLB kind of adopts some of the AAA rules that they implement for the minor leagues. Do you think this is something to come for the MLS?
I would say no. I don't really like how, just if we're going to talk about different sports, I don't really like how AAA, you know, gives ideas to the MLB. MLB takes them. I'm a big, just old school MLB guy. But talking soccer, I think
The
this
rules
is
are made
actually
up anyway.
okay. Well, but now we're talking soccer, so the rules are made up when it comes to soccer. Yeah.
For the
Um,
playoffs in the MLS, it is not an established thing. They change it
so
every
I
year. They
I
change it
actually
every year.
I like this process for the MLS Next Pro because it adds a youthful approach to it. And I think the youthfulness should stay with the youthfulness, and it gets you to pay attention to something like this. Whereas if you just take it and apply it to the MLS as well, then it's not new anymore, right? It's kind of lost its cachet, if you will. Plus, I think a lot of the MLS clubs would complain about it, to be honest with you. Rather than MLS Next Pro, I think it's an exciting thing. being able to just pick like, hey, I want to play you, and the team that gets chosen being like, all right, let's go, bring it. So that's
So
my
does
thoughts.
that when they choose their opponent that way, it basically creates like a seeding then, and that's how you build your bracket?
Well, so the seeding, yeah, I think that's how it's created. If I'm not mistaken, it's mainly just based off of right how it looks there. I'm not really too sure on the rest of the process if you want to look it up right now, but I think what would make sense is the first round would be the pick your opponent, and then after that, it would go to normal playoffs.
So yeah, you do have your playoff seeding. Um,
Because then the seedings wouldn't mean anything. So if you don't go
right.
back to them at any point, then it
It
wouldn't mean
says,
anything.
yeah, pick your opponent format to determine the matchups for the opening round in
Yeah, yeah,
conference
yeah.
quarterfinals. So I think it'd be very interesting for the MLS in this scenario that like, okay, right now, like we have a good likelihood that we know we're gonna play New York Red Bulls. But if you do this like pick your opponent thing, like it could switch up some things. Or like for FC Cincinnati's case, like not playing well towards the end of the season, does some of the top teams say, "Hey, I want to play you guys because you look easier the way you are in your current form right now." There's something to be said about that, and I think that would incentivize like teams actually taking the season seriously. And I don't know, it's a very interesting concept.
Well, the strategy, do you go after the Goliaths first? You know what I mean? Like, does the number one seed choose the number two seed just to get it out of the way, and then you don't have to deal with them?
I don't know. That's what I mean. I think it is a very, very interesting thing. We shall see it. So basically, I'm reading how the conference quarterfinals would work. 1 through 3 seeds in each conference will host and select their opponents from the 5 through 8 seed spot. The
Yeah.
fourth seed will host that remaining club that's there. And then from there, the conference semifinals, the highest remaining seed will select the opponent from the 2 lowest seeds.
Okay, so when you go into the next round, the highest then still
Correct.
picks. Got it.
Correct.
Okay.
Which is still cool that you get to kind of
Seniority.
like choose
Yeah.
your own adventure. Like that's kind of cool. And again, it incentivizes like for winning. So FC gets really, really good pick out of
If
this.
the listeners haven't recognized Ryan's inflection by this time, like he likes this idea. He really does.
It's true. It's true. I had no prior knowledge of this. So I think it would be a really cool thing for the MLS. Consider it. That'd be really cool. As we transition though for the development side of things and the way that this team had played this year, like there's a lot of names out there that could really have a shout for making this first team roster next year. The likes of Stefan Chirilla, Yair Ramos Perez, Mamba Dem, and Dally as well. So give me some of the stats from them and who you think, I guess, out of those four or anybody else that you think would make the first team roster.
Yeah, so we've watched this team develop throughout the year. Let's not be remiss here. This team at the beginning of the year had only won one game in their first 5 games, right? So the development throughout the year was amazing. I believe they went on a 5 or 6 game win streak throughout the year.
Oh, it was around
Um,
the same time that we won 7 games
yeah,
in a row.
yeah, yeah. So both teams were on fire during that. I think that was that May June area. Um, but as far as stats go, Stefan Trill is the main man. 6 goals, 3 assists in 19 matches. Still only 17 years old, and I mean Ryan, he does have the potential if he continues his good run of form, which we saw kind of towards the end of this FCC2 season. He kind of fell off a little bit, um, goal scoring wise. But he was still involved in the games, right? So he's getting, I think he had more assists in the latter half of the season than he did at the beginning. So still being involved, creating those chances. So he was taken away by some of those teams, but still able to contribute to the squad, which we've kind of seen from the likes of, in the past, Brenner, Vasquez, Lucho, guys that can be up top.
Shout about Stefan Chirilla. Went straight from his under 17 team or 15
Yeah,
team,
17.
17s, killed it, had like 40 something goals, didn't get a break, went straight to MLS Next Pro. Did really well at the beginning and then probably kind of faded because he hadn't stopped playing
Tired.
soccer for months. And then towards the latter part of the season was called up to the U17 national team, had to travel for that as well. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. The dude is a natural goal scorer. He's going to be on the first team next year for sure. That's already been kind of established, but his role coming up will be kind of the key part to it. Are they going to integrate him more, start him more? Like what's going to happen with that? Out of the other guys though, like we do have some other goal scoring threats. Mama Dem, goal scorer for FCC2, 12 goal contributions, I believe, in 18 matches. Like shout out University of Dayton for this guy. His dad, I think, had played professionally as well. So interesting to see if he's going to make the roster there. And then we also have another guy that's going to be coming up here soon, Sam.
Yeah, yeah. So Yair, he had only 3 goals this season, but he's 18 years old, right? So kind of like Stefan, he controlled the midfield a lot when he came in this season. Started a lot of the games that he participated in, and he actually recently got called up to the first team for the Venezuelan national team. So the kid, I know when we first saw the announcement, we both texted each other like, "Oh, like that's great." Oh, that's the first team. Like he got called up to the first team. So obviously, at the national level, they're seeing what we're seeing here at the MLS Next Pro level, and he'll definitely probably be a good role player. Honestly, next year if he can get in with the first team. I know it's a little crowded. I know we like Malik Pinto a lot. However, he hasn't been favored in at all this year. To be honest with you, played more of a role last year off the bench, but I think Yair will play a significant part next year.
Very interested why Pinto wasn't as involved. Like he
Yeah,
led the
yeah, I
team
know.
in sub appearances last year, but the subs we've had haven't really been like in the midfield. Buka's been there, Obi's been there, and like if they get subbed out, it's Kubo that goes to center mid. So but Pinto would have been really cool to see to get more minutes. Going back to Yair Ramos Perez, though, like you had mentioned, I mean, getting called up for the first team for the World Cup qualifying, they play Argentina and Paraguay in World Cup qualifying. And this dude might, let's be honest, he's probably not going to get any minutes, but
Yeah.
he's going to be a part of the first
Uh,
team.
He might.
Sam, who is on the FC Cincinnati first team right now who is a Venezuelan national player? Think about it.
I mean, Kevin Kelsey, right?
Kevin Kelsey did not get called up to the first team, but a guy from the FCC2 team got called up. That's very interesting.
That's pretty crazy. That's pretty crazy.
So, I mean, shout out to him for being on the radar. I mean, he's playing well down with the two team, but at some point, like, he's going to be probably practicing with, I would imagine, the first team, hopefully starting to get some minutes. Like, 18 is kind of teetering the line of, okay, we can start including these guys. So he's represented Venezuela, though, at U15, U20s, and now, the senior team. So hopefully we'll get to see him. We probably won't, but that's okay. Speaking of guys we may see, though, Sam, for our U.S. men's national team, we have Miles Robinson, who was named to this U.S. team. And then recently, Brandon Vazquez actually got the nod as well with some of the injuries. I think, Tim Weah and then Florin Balogun got hurt. So Vazquez gets the call in. The U.S. plays on Saturday, the 12th, against Panama, and the 15th against Mexico. So very cool if Vazquez was to play against Mexico. That'd be a huge storyline for him personally. Playing in Mexico, born in the U.S., but ties to Mexico and his family. Pretty special moment if that happens.
Yeah, I know for both of these guys, Vasquez has 8 appearances, Robinson has 29 appearances. I would hope that we see them both play. And I want to know your take here. How much do you think Poch rotates the squads to see like what he has?
Yeah, it's a new manager, right? And you're gonna play guys that are playing consistently. And he's come out and said he wants players, whatever level, playing. And so to me, like he's actually looking at the MLS and shout out to him for including Miles Robinson. Like this interim manager doesn't include Miles, in the game that's in Cincinnati. Like he's already in the city. Like why would you not include him? makes no sense. But Pochettino sees the potential for him. I have to kind of admit that Robinson needs to elevate his game if he wants to play at this level. But yeah, shout out to him. I think you actually do get to see him in the rotation, probably next to the likes of Mark McKenzie, I think is the other one that's healthy. Chris Richards would be there, but he's injured right now. And then you're not going to go with Tim Ream because, I mean, you're going into the World Cup and he'll be like 38, 40 years old or something like that. So I think he's going to give Robinson a look and say, prove to me why you should be on this team.
Who's more likely to get a start, Brendan Vazquez or Miles Robinson?
Miles Robinson. Vasquez is a little bit behind in the depth chart, behind Josh Sargent, Pepe. Maybe, Pochettino sees like Vasquez comes in and plays hard in practice and earns his spot and says, hey, I want to play against Mexico. That'd be really, really cool to see him start. Both of them just to be included, like pretty special that this new manager sees that potential and kind of like just justifies like we're looking at the right talent. Even Josh Sargent as a potential target and Weston McKennie, like how many of these guys have we actually looked at to bring into our team?
Yeah, I'm excited to see Poch with his first Mexico U.S. men's national team experience. Hopefully, he can kind of be a part of history and maybe get a dose of Cero or something right out of the gate.
Be pretty special. Another player, honorable shout out that we might see for the U.S. men's national team in the future, Sam. Lucho Acosta. He's still working on getting his U.S. green card or the citizenship. So would be special as we move on to the MLS end of the year awards, Sam. Is Lucho the MVP of the league once again? It's never been done in the MLS for a player to win back-to-back MVPs in consecutive seasons. Right now, he is tied on goal contributions with 34 with Evander. I think there's an honorable shout for it. The late run of form probably says no. Historically, it's a full season, and his value for the team, like without him, different story, like completely different team. Right now, like you had mentioned, the feeling around the MLS is like it's a Cucho and Messi kind of thing. And Evander, with his team being in 7th or 8th place, like it's hard to pick an MVP if they're that far out. I honestly wouldn't be shocked if it's Messi, but Lucho, man, that would be incredible. 2 years in a row as MVP, that would just be insane.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that we're debating whether or not Lucho should be the MVP when he had three more goal comps than last year, and he's not even the favorite to win MVP, and we still have a regular season game left. So I find that, just kind of mind blowing, because that's the quality that we've been able to see from Lucho this year. Good, bad, injured, like he's gone through it all this year. How many people around him, the lineup, he has been the consistent piece on the lineup. How many times has the back line changed? How many times has the midfield changed? How many times has the attacking changed? Lucho remains the guy up top in the middle there, and he makes it work. That's why we're third in the East. So, I mean, I know we sit here and we're like most valuable means most valuable to your team and to the MLS and to the like he should win MVP based off of that. So I'm really hoping Lucho goes out there against the Union. I know we'll talk about it next episode, but puts up a hat trick or puts up, like 3 goal comps, 2 goal comps, something to kind of set him over the edge where it's like you can't say no. Like you just can't.
Yeah, how much did his injury though cost him for a back-to-back? If we had Lucho healthy for the past 2 months, he's probably got like the record in assists for a season, Sam. I mean, he's at 19, 26 is the record. Like we were talking about it in the summer and the injury bug caught up to him in playing all of these games. I mean, like you said, he's in every lineup as much as he can. And as you get up there in age in this league and in soccer in general, like it's hard to stay that consistent. So I would say it definitely costs like the runaway vote. Like the fact that he's still even tied to it with the amount of time that he was out, with the games, at least more recently, that he hadn't done as well. But I mean, what, 2 or 3 games in a row now with a goal, I think, or a goal contribution. So He's starting to four in a row, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
four.
he's coming back around, and like as soon as you write him out of it, he's getting himself
He's
right
right
back in
back
it.
in.
He's right back in. So something to look out for. We'll talk a little bit more about like awards, end of the season, comeback player, stuff like that. More probably after the Philly game, after the regular season. There's a lot of shouts out there, I'm sure, for different players. But before we go, Sam, what was your trivia question and answer?
Yeah, so trivia of the week was centered around FCC2. How many hat tricks has FCC2 had this season? It's going to give, the random bonus points for Ryan if he named some players. Ryan had said three, named Stefan Trilla and Dotto as the two guys that got the hat tricks. Ryan, you're one off. You're one off. The answer was two, and Dotto has had both. So
Really?
actually, yeah. So Dotto had the first hat trick when he played the Philadelphia Union in April,
Hmm.
and then his most recent hat trick. So that's crazy that all six of his goals have come on hat tricks and in two games.
Against two really good like next pro teams historically as well.
Yeah.
And like when he comes in, he's like, I'm just gonna score and I'm gonna score in buckets.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when he gets to the MLS level, like it's just like off the post or unlucky. But like if he can translate that for next year, that'd be great.
Yeah. 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 I mean, like we've seen, he can do it, right? He
He
can
can
do
do it.
it.
The talent's there.
The talent's there. That I think he's just got to have the confidence and, um, yeah, really the confidence in his ability with the first team to be able to put those chances away, and just strike while the iron's hot.
And honestly, like he really took his opportunity early on in the year, and like I don't feel like he lost it. It's just like we had to kind of flip the page in some ways and try out different things, and he kind of got lost in the mix of it. But I really think like it needs to be said, like he's got to get more contributions for the first team, in terms of like a late sub that can impact the game or do something meaningful. Like especially if Santos is going to be out with a concussion for a little bit, like I would love to see him in the playoffs come in and do something special.
A lot of quality, not enough consistency.
Yeah, absolutely. But next year, different story, hopefully. But Sam, thanks for joining me tonight. We will be back with you guys next week. We'll probably do a little bit of a recap of the U.S. men's national team games, some of the FCC guys.
Special guest.
Special guests might be coming along. We might have a nice interview for you. And then we'll preview for that Philly game. But we will see you guys next week.